Hello, YouTubers. Many of our dispensational friends often equate the tribulation with the time of God's wrath, which we are promised protection from. For example, Zephaniah offers this humble advice: Seek the Lord, all ye humble of the land, who do his just commands. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you may be hidden on the day of the anger of the Lord. So, if the tribulation is shown to be something other than the time of God's wrath, their whole view falls apart. And I'm sure they'll gladly admit it, right? Interesting what the comment section will look like. This video shows how the tribulation, if we are to accept the Bible as scripture, couldn't possibly be the time of God's wrath, and is in fact the wrath of Satan. It shows that the day of the Lord is the time of God's wrath, and why it must occur after the tribulation. The Bible plainly states that Satan is given a time of wrath. It states in Revelation 12:12, Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. It even teaches who he is given permission to make war with. In verse 17 it says, Then the dragon became furious with the woman, and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And it goes into even more detail in the next chapter when it states that the beast was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and that authority was given over it to every tribe and people and language and nation, and that all who dwell upon earth will worship it, everyone whose name had not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. So, Satan is clearly given a time for wrath and is worshipped by all in the earth, except for those found in the Lamb's book of life. That is, the Great Tribulation is not the wrath of God, it is the wrath of Satan. So, who does he focus his wrath on? Well, those who he makes war with, which is the seed of the woman, those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus, who are written before the foundation of the world in the Lamb's book of life. Sounds like the church or Christians to me. Here's a simple question. Does anyone honestly think that God would share the time of his wrath with Satan? If not, then clearly God's wrath does not occur during Satan's wrath. Satan's wrath must occur first, for otherwise, what is God reacting to? The reason God becomes angry enough to pour out his wrath on the world is because the world, with the Antichrist as ruler, made war with the church, as shown in this passage. They cried out with a loud voice, O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before you will judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell upon the earth? Then they were given each a white robe, and told to rest a little longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brothers should be complete, who were to be killed, as they themselves had been. And then a little bit further down it says, Then one of the elders addressed me, saying, Who are these, clothed in white robes, and from where have they come? I said to him, Sir, you know. And he said to me, These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. To recap, we realize that because the whole world, under the rule of the Antichrist, made war with Christians, God becomes angry enough to pour out his wrath on mankind. During this time, he will judge and avenge the blood of those killed in the Great Tribulation. We know this is the reason because it directly teaches that those who are given white robes, that is, the same ones in the fifth seal, are the ones coming out of the Great Tribulation. As said at the beginning of this video, the wrath of God goes by another name in the Bible called the Day of the Lord, or the Day of the Anger of the Lord. Here's just one reference to it, describing it as a day of wrath. The great day of the Lord is near and hastening fast. The sound of the day of the Lord is bitter. The mighty man cries aloud there. A day of wrath is that day, a day of distress and anguish, a day of ruin and devastation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of trumpet blast and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the lofty battlements. I will bring distress on mankind, so that they shall walk like the blind, because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood shall be poured out like dust, their flesh like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them on the day of the wrath of the Lord, the fire of his jealousy. All the earth shall be consumed, for full and sudden end will he make of all the inhabitants of the earth. Folks, it's simple. The day of the Lord, when God pours out his wrath, happens after the Great Tribulation. It is from this we are promised protection. We are not promised protection from the wrath of Satan, which is the Great Tribulation. We also know that the day of the Lord happens after the Great Tribulation because immediately after the tribulation we see the same cosmic disturbances that were spoken of by the prophet Isaiah, spoken of by Jesus in Matthew 24. Further, we know that the rapture happens right before the day of the Lord, since we are promised protection from it. This is exactly what Paul the Apostle meant when he said, "Now concerning the times and seasons, brothers, you have no need to have anything written to you, for you yourselves are fully aware the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night." So, when does God's wrath occur in Revelation? Right after the rapture, found in chapter 14. In fact, Revelation directly states it is the outpouring of God's wrath. If you follow the context, the purpose of one of the angels is to warn people against taking the mark of the beast. They will feel God's wrath poured out on them, it states. And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast in its image, and receives a mark on his forehead or his hand, he will also drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb." And then what happens? The earth is harvested, and God's wrath begins, as can be shown by the following verse. "Then I saw another sign in heaven, great and amazing, 7 angels with 7 plagues, which are the last, for with them the wrath of God is finished." That's all the time I have for now. If you like this video, please show your support by subscribing. Thanks for your time.